Alright, so at this point we have our heel. Okay. And then we go back to the main part of our stocking. Remember we secured this by a chain. Okay, if you haven't done that, do that. Make a chain, just one chain. And then what we're going to do is we're going to continue building our stocking using a series of rows of single crochet, double crochet, similar to how we made the main part of the stocking. So at this part we're going to be continuing from the heel. Okay, so we make sure you have your chain one and then work a single crochet on that same stitch, that same space. Okay, and then we look for the stitch that attaches the heel to the main stocking. So that's the stitch, so we don't count that. This is the last stitch before that transition, and then another stitch. So these two stitches, we're going to call them the last two stitches until transition. We are not going to be working single crochet with these two stitches. We're going to skip those. So we're going to go back here. We did a single crochet here. We do another single crochet. So that's two single crochets we just made with this row. And then skip those two stitches there. Work a single crochet in the first stitch of the heel, so which is this one. So we have our heel, yeah? Remember we made 21 stitches as the last row for the heel. So we insert your hook into the first stitch you can find for the heel, and then work a single crochet stitch in that. Just put this out of the way. And then keep making single crochet stitches throughout that length of the heel. So since we have 21 stitches for the final row of the heel, we need to make 21 single crochet stitches. Right, so this is 21 stitches throughout the heel, and then we come again to the transition between the heel and the main part of the stocking. And we are going to skip these two stitches. So skip one, skip two, insert your hook on the third stitch, and then make a single crochet stitch there and throughout that same row. In total, you should have 38 single crochet stitches in that row. Now, that would change if you don't have exactly 42 stitches for every row for the main part of your stocking. So if you have one less, then you should have just 37 single crochet stitches. If you have one more, it will be 39. Okay, so this should be my 38th single crochet stitch, and I'm going to close it with a slip stitch. Okay, so if you had followed my method and you're thinking, what about that stitch? That's not counted because that's the slip stitch closing our previous row. Okay, so that's not counted because this stitch here is actually a chain stitch. So we insert your hook in the first stitch, first single crochet stitch of that same row, and then we're going to slip stitch to close that. Okay. So if you have 42 stitches for the main part of your stocking, you should have 38 single crochet stitches in this row. The next row is going to be a row of double crochet stitches, and you will stick to the same number of stitches as the previous row. So if you have 38 single crochet stitches, you should have 38 double crochet stitches. So I will have my chain 2 turning chain, and then I'm going to work double crochet stitches throughout. Okay, so at this point I've just made 38 double crochet stitches, and I'm going to close this with a slip stitch by inserting my hook in the first double crochet of that row, and I'm going to yarn over, pull through that same stitch and the last hook loop on my hook. Okay, and the next row is going to be a row of single crochet stitches. Okay, so the same thing as the main part of our stocking. Chain one, work a single crochet in the same space, and for every stitch around that row. Okay, so now we have made the foot of your stocking, which is essentially repeating the same pattern of double crochet stitches and single crochet stitches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rows of double crochet stitches, and in between those double crochet stitch rows we have single crochet stitches, and we end up with a double crochet row. Okay, and then in every row we complete that with a slip stitch. Okay, and then we fasten off. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is to create the toe for our stocking. Okay, to do that we're going to fold your stocking like this, so you can see you've got your heel there. Yep. Since we have 38 stitches, we're going to divide that by 2, which should be 19 stitches per side. Okay, I'm just gonna flip this over. So we should have 19 stitches per side, okay, because we're going to make a toe on each side. Okay, so this side here we're gonna have a toe, and then the other side as well. You're going to insert your hook on one edge here. If you're left-handed, you work from left to right. If you're right-handed, you should be inserting your hook on the right edge and then working your way from right to left. Yeah, okay. Okay, so what we need to do is to follow the pattern. We are going to join using our second yarn color with a slip stitch, and then we're going to chain one. Okay, and then we are going to SC2 together, that's single 2 together. Insert your hook in the same stitch as before, yarn over, pull through that stitch, and then you're going to insert your hook again, but in the second stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through the 3 loops on your hook. And then we are going to single crochet in the next 15 stitches. So and then we are going to do SC2 together, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull through that stitch, yarn over, pull through the 3 loops on the hook. So this is your SC2 together. Okay, so that is the first row for your toe. Now, since we said we should be starting with 19 stitches, but because we reduced the stitches in the first and the last stitches, then we ended up with 17 stitches for this first row for the toe. We're going to continue single crochet and then decrease 1 stitch each end of every row until 3 stitches remain. So we're going to turn our work, and then we need to chain one, of course. Okay, and then we're going to reduce our stitches by doing SE2 together. Okay. We need to do this, we decrease one stitch each end of every row. So actually we reduce it twice for every row. Okay. So the next row, if we had 17 stitches in the first row for the toe, the next row you should have 15 stitches because you reduce it twice for every row, one on each end. And we keep doing this until we reach 3 stitches for the last row. Okay, so we reduce the last end by doing SE2 together. So this is the last row because the pattern says we need to continue doing this particular pattern until 3 stitches remain. So that's 1, 2, and 3 stitches. And then we fasten off. Oops. I recommend you do a chain 1 before cutting the yarn. Okay. So that's one side of the toe. You do the same thing for the other side. Exactly the same thing. Okay. Meet you when we have finished the second side of the toe. Okay, so the thing to do is to make the toe on 2 sides. We've already made one side, and now I went on ahead and made the second side. Okay. Same procedure. If you're left-handed, you join your yarn on the left edge. If you're right-handed, you join your yarn on the right edge. Okay. And when I say edge, as we already showed, we simply just fold this bit. Yeah. So that's an edge right there. So once we've made both sides of the toe, we need to join them. So what you need to do is to go on to the other side of our Christmas stockings. Turn this inside out. And I am going to be using single crochet stitch to join the toe, or to close the toe up. If you want, you can also use a slip stitch. That's one way to do it also. And then another way to join would be to use a yarn needle and to stitch it close. So it really depends on your personal preference. I like a single crochet stitch to join things, especially if you're going to end up with the side that is, you know, you can't see, which is the inside of the Christmas stocking. So make sure that your stitches are more or less aligned. Okay, and then you join your yarn, if you're left-handed, in the leftmost part of your toe. If you're right-handed, you join the yarn on the rightmost edge of your toe. So it would be this edge right here. So insert your hook on both layers, yarn over, something like a slip stitch, and then chain stitch, and then you can start with your single crochet stitch. So make sure every time you insert your hook that you are penetrating both layers. Okay, the bottom layer of the toe and the upper part. Okay. So insert the hook, yarn over, pull through that stitch, yarn over through both loops on the hook. So just keep doing that and making sure that your layers are correctly matched. Okay, sometimes you need to adjust it just to make sure they're matched. Okay, so now we have done a single crochet to close the toe. So do a final chain stitch and then cut your yarn. Okay. And then you can turn this over so the right side is facing out. And then we check the outside part of our stocking, especially the toe area. It should be closed. Okay. If there's any gaps, you could just remedy it by stitching with the yarn needle, stitching it closed. Okay, so that's the toe.